All right. Awesome. I'm so glad that you're here, Diane, and that we get to sit down together and have a conversation about manifestation. And, I don't really know where this conversation is going, so I'm always excited to be in the curious unfolding of it.
I love that. I'm here for that. Thank you so much
So,
for having me here.
yeah, I would love for you to share um, your journey with money. Um, yeah, I know that's a
Okay.
big ask.
Let's just like start with the most challenging part of my life, probably for most of my life. So my money journey basically can be summed up as this. When I was a teenager, I just decided that money was the most horrible thing on earth. And I think like a lot of people who are artists and who are creatives and who consider themselves to be spiritual, I just felt like I was above money.
Yes,
Money
yes,
was something that shallow people wanted, that greedy people wanted, that people who are not like me, like I just wanted nothing to do with the kind of people who wanted money, you know?
yeah,
My people were the spiritual people, were the artists, were the creatives. Like we care about art and authenticity and being real and all that much more than we care about money. So that's how I was. And that, as I say, started in my teenage years. Now, in later years, I have traced that and I thought, why was like, where did that come from? And it's so interesting. Like, why did that occur? And I realized that in my own family story from when I was a child to when I became a teenager. So I was born into a very working class Scottish family. And when, my grandparents were all blue collar workers, my grandmothers were cleaning ladies, things like that, right?
yeah,
And my parents they got married when my mom was 17 and my dad was 20. So you can imagine they were poor as anything, right?
yeah, yeah.
you know, and my dad worked in this factory. And my mom was like, at home having the first baby when she was 17, the second one, me, when she was 21. And they were like, they had no money. But, what I remember of my early childhood is we were really happy. Now, what happened was that my dad he's a really smart guy, right? And a really hardworking person. And so in the factory, he started to work for the lab in the factory. And then he got, he really advanced quickly in this. It was
Yes.
a rubber company that makes tire belts for car engines. And so he started to climb the ladder. And we started traveling and we moved from Scotland to Japan, because it was car industry. So, he got an offer to go do something with this Japanese company over there, etc. And so they started to make more money. And as I grew up, my parents had more money, but what I saw and what I internalized and saw firsthand was that they were less happy, right? That there was more stress, there was more anxiety, there was less freedom. That my dad went from being the kind of person who was always available and always so much fun and like really fun to being somebody who was just like always stressed and tired. And so and it wasn't until years later that I did the money work and really like discerned like why by the time I was a teenager, I was just like, I don't care about money. I thought there was a choice you had to make in life. You could either be free or you could have money. And I was
Wow.
like, freedom is my highest value. Freedom is
Yeah.
it all the way. And so that's how I lived my life. And, I went into my 20s and I taught yoga and, I had great time. It was like, I opened a yoga school in Barcelona. I went to India and studied yoga and I was just like totally into yoga. And during that time though, as well, I was really like all my life, I wanted to be an artist. Like all my life, I wanted to write. Being a writer was like my highest and best. But I was so deeply conditioned into thinking that that was impossible.
Mhm.
I was so deeply conditioned in thinking that my voice didn't count, that I would never do anything good, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, as I've said, my parents are working class Scottish people. We're not artist people. It's like, oh no,
Yeah, yeah.
that's my class, right? If you like books, work in the library. That was like, I actually got told that, if you like books, you should get a job in the library. It was not like you could go be you could go be a writer. No.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I really wanted to write, but I was so blocked. And so I spent a lot of my 20s and going into my 30s, like unblocking myself as a creative, and finding the courage to actually be a writer. And it was screenplays because I was obsessed with movies. I just like, oh, I was such a cinephile. And so through that, I just, I opened that channel and wrote my first screenplay. And I started to have success with that. I sold my first screenplay. I moved to LA and all kinds of things unfolded. But the truth was that it really didn't matter what kinds of successes I had creatively. Financially, I was always pretty much a disaster because my attitude was still, I hate money. Right? Like, I don't want money, right? I'm the free-spirited bohemian. Like, I can even remember the very first time that I met the man who became my manager as a screenwriter, filmmaker, and actually saying to him, I don't care about money. I just want you to know this up front. Like, money will never motivate me. What I care about is creativity. What I care about is doing the work that I love, right? And that's who I was. And so, no surprise that all through my 20s and 30s, like, it was just like hand to mouth all the time. Like, will I be able to pay my rent? Usually not having any health insurance, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But also living truly an abundant life.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, like, even though I had no money, I was so abundant in so many other ways, and so like turned on by life and having such a great time, that it was really only money that was like blocked off. And I
Yes.
really didn't care about that. Like, for most of the time, it really didn't actually upset me, because I was just
Yeah.
like, it's not something that I actually desire. It's not something I care about. It started to upset me though when I had my first child. And that's definitely like a thing that sort of shifts you. And I was 40 years old when I had my first child.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, he came along completely naturally and complete surprise and so beautiful. And I wanted to have a baby for ages. I've been married to my husband for like 6 years. We've been trying for years. And I was just somebody, like, I was like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we had sort of gone, it's not happening. It's probably not going to happen. It's fine. And then suddenly I was pregnant. And
Wow.
after having my first baby, it's that thing, like, there's certain things you just want to be able to do. And that, like,
Yeah.
suddenly not having financial resources, it didn't feel so free anymore.
Yeah.
It started to feel like I'm not being able to actually live the life that I really want to live, or give the life that I want to give to my child. And it started to feel not so bohemian and wild and free anymore, but just like actually frustrating and constrained. And I still didn't, though, start to do the money work. I still just, like, whizzed along in my own sort of normal way. After he was born, I made 2 more films after he was born. And then by the time that it was when my second one came along, which was, I was 45 when I got pregnant for the second time.
Amazing. Holy shit.
It was hilarious. All my friends, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm pregnant. I was a bit shocked. I was quite like like a little bit upset. Okay, I felt like I was just getting my life back. My oldest,
Yeah.
the first one was 5. So it was just
Right.
beginning to get easier. And suddenly I was like, I'm pregnant. And my friends were all like, you do understand how this works, don't you? Like, I'm actually sure. I was like, you do understand I'm 45 years old and it's not meant to happen. It's meant to be like, you're meant to be like on the pill if you're 45. So anyway, so there we were, and I was 45 and I was pregnant. And that's when I really, there was a lot of things in my life at that moment that just felt like they weren't really working.
Yeah.
And I was just feeling depleted, frustrated, and like I wasn't where I wanted to be at all in life. And I remember it was like probably after he was born, because I really see the turning point, and I'm 50 years old now, so this will tell you, it's only 4 years ago. I
Yeah.
feel like the real turning point was right around my 46th birthday. And I was thinking, okay, 4 years from now, I'm going to be 50. And when I turn 50, I want to be happier, healthier, wealthier, and wiser than I've ever been in my life, right? Like,
Wow.
that's what I'm doing. I am not, like, this is not it. And I'm going to go all in. And I knew from the past, like, I knew from unblocking myself as an artist and creating these miraculous results in my creative life. Like, I made a movie that got into Sundance and won awards. I sold multiple scripts, got hired for dream jobs, like all kinds of things that, are miraculous in our film world, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, there's things that I know that I can make these shifts. I've done it before. Like, I've gone from being a blocked creative to winning an award at Sundance. If I can
Yeah.
do
I
that,
mean,
I can do this.
Diane, you are like, I'm feeling chills all over my body, and I feel like I want to cry just because it's just,
Mm,
I can just feel like the way that you're just create, like the creation magic. You're just like, yeah, I fucking made this happen here, and I'm just gonna do it here now. Like, just that
yeah,
decision,
yeah,
right? Where you're just like, I'm so done, or I'm so ready, right? Whichever one it is for you, where you just say, like, this is it, this is my moment.
yeah. And that was
Yeah.
totally it. And it was just like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Like, I'm going all in. Like, I'm not leaving anything. Like, I'm going all in. And so it was right there around like, I feel like it was like 45 leading up to my 46th birthday.
Yeah.
It was, and I just went, okay, this is it. I'm going to do this. And I started to do it. My first thing was just like looking at the patterns in my own life. And I was like, let's see if I can notice any patterns, like what led up to me creating incredible results, right? Because I've created
Yes.
results in my life that are impossible and crazy, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
who was I being? What was I believing? What was I doing? What were my habits? Like, what was the energy? What was going on? Can I see a pattern in this? Immediately, I can see patterns, And it also,
Okay.
on the flip side, I was like, when things didn't work, what are the patterns? Right? Like,
Yes.
let's look at that. And I could immediately see these patterns. And then I just started studying it too. Like, I just started reading every freaking book I could about manifestation, about the law of attraction. I started to listen to podcasts nonstop all the time. Like, my life depended upon it. I just like, I mean, there was no more just like sitting watching Netflix in the evening. It was completely like, if I've got a free moment, I'm like, I'm studying, I'm learning,
Yeah.
I'm figuring this out. And I just started doing all the things, like I'm gonna throw everything at this, right? I'm
Yeah.
gonna be doing affirmations, I'm gonna be doing chanting, I'm doing like an hour yoga every day. I'm doing like everything, right? I'm just going all in. And it, like, I can't say like it was instant, the change happened overnight. But I mean, it is kind of crazy that within 4 years, my life has completely transformed, and for the first time in my life, I mean, we bought a house. We were living in Denver at the time when that part of the story kicked off. I was
Yeah.
living in Denver, Colorado, and I'd always rented. I'd never owned a home, and we bought a home in Denver. Like about a year and a half after me starting this, like really seriously, and starting my
Yes.
online business, and just opening channels of abundance and finding like, oh my God, I can make money. Like, I'd never made money before. Because I'd never prioritized it. Like, I would make money, but as fast as it would come in, it would go out,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
like, this thing. And it was like, oh. And so we bought a house, and that was incredible. And then, a couple of years later, we decided that we wanted to move to Spain, which is where I lived before. And I just, so there's a whole bunch, that's a whole story. But, here I am now sitting in, we bought like basically my dream home in Spain. I just pinch myself. I wake up looking at the Mediterranean Sea. I can watch the sunrise and the sunset from my bed, right, with the sea. And I'm like, this is the life that I dreamed of when I was 25, but I actually thought was impossible for so many
Yes.
years.
Yes.
And all it really took was me really deciding to do the work, deciding that it was possible for me, deciding that I was willing to do the work, deciding that I was willing to see things differently and to do things
Yes.
differently, deciding that I was going to listen to every nudge and every intuition,
Mm.
even the really hard ones. Because actually, one of the first things that came through for me when I made a decision to change my life, one of the first things that came through was, you have to stop drinking alcohol. Right. And I remember like, like
Whoa.
this voice coming through, and I was just like, no, not that. Like, I'll do anything, but not that. Right. And, and that intuition kept coming back to me, Diane, if you're going to create this dream life, you're going to have to stop drinking alcohol. You're losing integrity over it. You're just like, you're losing your
Wow.
power in that. And, it's just, and again, looking at the patterns, I could see the patterns with times that I was not drinking or drinking less. And at that point I was like, I would enjoy a glass of wine every evening. I don't consider myself an alcoholic. I don't consider myself in recovery, but it was, but I did, I did enjoy a drink. And I was like, okay, finally I was like, okay, the day after my 46th birthday, if that's what it's going to take, I'm going to do it. And I haven't drank since. It's been nearly 5 years.
And seemingly random things, right? That when, as you describe it now, are about power, are
Yes,
about not diluting your power.
completely,
Yeah.
completely.
Wow.
So the money story, I mean, I can't believe it. I've completely transformed my money story in the sense of like how much money I have, and how much money, like the resources that are available to me. But I've completely changed all my beliefs around money. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think one single belief, like all that false dichotomies that I had around money, all those false dichotomies that it was like some sort of choice, that you had,
Yeah.
it was either this or that. Right?
Yes. Yes,
I
exactly.
just don't see that as a choice now. I'm like, you can have everything. Like, why would you make that a choice? Why would you say you can be free or you can have money? Like, I
Right.
really had that so deeply ingrained in my brain. And this is just the idea that everybody who's wealthy is horrible, That was like somewhere deeply ingrained in me too,
And
that
very
despite,
common, you and I are of the same generation, very common for our generation.
Yeah.
right? Very common money story.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I feel like especially for people, and this is one of my passions now, is working with artists, creative people, women, people who, have internalized some sort of story that like money is just something that they don't really want to be part of.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm still on the journey. I'm not like, I definitely do not feel like I've completed it. There's still like a long way for me to go on
Yeah.
this journey for
Yeah.
sure.
Do you have, like, can you share, do you feel open to share a moment where it was just like, where something was illuminated, let's say a shadow, right? A shadow, something that was like shocking to you that you didn't know was sort of hidden in your consciousness
Okay. Around money, particularly,
around
or
money in particular. Yeah, because I feel like, a lot of people that I work with, they've done a lot of money mindset work. They've done a lot of, embodiment work around money, and there's still stuff that is sort of like deeper, maybe ancestral, or
oh yes.
stuff that'll like kind of come up, bubble up
Well,
suddenly, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's how I've been blocking myself. Thank you
yeah.
for illuminating that.
Well, to be honest, I have this thing like with manifestation. I think the hardest part of manifestation is actually receiving.
Mm,
I don't think it's that difficult to create like the opportunities to receive what we want. And people
yes.
think that's the hard part, right? It's like,
Okay.
oh my God, I really want the money, I really want the job, I really want the opportunity, whatever it is. I don't like it will come to you so damn fast you won't believe it. But I think the hardest part is in the receiving and in believing that we're worthy of receiving and in that identity shift. And to be honest, when you were speaking, what came to mind for me was actually like in this past year, so we moved into, and I said, this is like my dream house. Now, when I first saw this online right in Denver, it was like my husband and I were basically like checking these real estate sites all the time, in this town in Spain that we wanted to move to. And I saw this house and it was the view. I went, oh, my whole heart went a flutter. And I was just like, oh my God. And I looked at this house and I was like, oh my God, it's perfect. Like it's got all the things, it's got the right number of bedrooms on the same floor and it's got a guest apartment so my parents could come to stay. It's got an elevator so my parents who have mobility issues can go, can get around that. Oh my God, like it's got everything. It's got swimming pool. It's got, it's got this, that. I'm like, oh my God. But I look at the price and I'm like, okay, it's way outside of our budget range. It's like, no, this is never going to happen. But nonetheless, I like, I took a screenshot of this view and I made it my wallpaper on my phone. It still is, right? And so
Nice.
every time I open my phone, I looked at the view, right? And I was just looking at that view and go, oh, that's so beautiful. And I would put a picture of it up above my like elliptical machine at home in Denver, and I would just gaze at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But it was like out of reach, but it just seemed to symbolize somehow what I was working towards anyway. Well, anyway, all these magical things aligned. When we sold our house in Denver, it was like in this crazy bubble of prices. I mean, it did not make sense how much we sold our house for. Like we made such a huge profit on it. And then also when we were actually then moving our money from USA to Euro, it was like the exchange rate was the best it could have been in like 30 years, like since the euro started. People were like, it's never been like this. And it's like, what is happening,
Yeah.
And all these things aligned. So we ended up buying this house. Now I have to be honest, though, moving into the house, and this was like the most intense thing. You'd think you would just be overjoyed and happy. You're like, yay, my dream came true. Actually, I was just in a state of anxiety and sort of panic for months. I kid you not. And, as I started to really explore that, and just like go
Yeah.
into that, like, what is this, and I realized how deep the feeling was of like actually not being worthy of certain things,
Yeah. Yeah.
of actually like, yeah, it was fine to be the person who wanted that thing, to have it on your board, right? It was
That's
fine to
right.
be the person who's like desiring it and going after it. And that like, that identity feels comfortable for me, right? Like the go-getter who's like, I'm going to go get that
Yes.
thing. But then when it actually comes, it's like, oh, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? Right. And, and
Right.
all kinds of sort of like self-sabotaging behaviors were kicking in, just in like I mean, just in the way that I was showing up to my business mostly, I was like really going through like a crisis of like, what am I doing? Like, who am I,
Yeah.
And I think this is like, for me, like just such a big thing I mean, my lineage, as I said, I come from very working class background in Scotland, and, the women, and I like a big part of what I work with now, I work with women, and we really go into, uh, our matrilineage. And as a Scottish woman, we had 300 years of the witch trials, right?
Yes. Wow.
Oh, more than. And I grew up with always like, like there's see that cliff over there, like that's where they used to push women off the cliff, and if they died then they were witches, and if they survived they were witches, and they would get burned at the stake, and if they had like survived, if they died then they were dead, and they could be buried in the church. And like
Wow.
actually this summer when I was back in Scotland, the town where my parents lived, they had this sort of commemoration of the witches who had been killed there, witches, like 78 women. And this town is like, today it's a small town. And I imagine like, today it's like 15,000 people. If you murdered 78 women, right, today in that
That would be
town,
huge.
like the trauma of
Yeah.
that entire town, right, would
Yeah.
be immense, right? But back then it was probably like 1,000 people or something,
Right.
I mean, you probably, and I really have this thing that like, as women, as we sort of like expand and grow and embody our fullness, and grow into increasing levels of abundance, and into our dream lives, you really test your sort of like DNA structure, I feel like, like, because
Yes.
everything that you've been conditioned for centuries has been, here's how you stay safe: stay small, keep your head low, don't stand out, don't hope for too much. My grandmother used to say this to me all the time. She'd say, don't hope for too much and you'll never be disappointed, right? I mean, that was like one of her like catchphrases, right? And she was a
Yeah.
lovely, lovely woman, like the sweetest lady. She'd say all the time, she's just don't wish for too much. This is how you create a happy life. And then as you're creating it, it's like, okay, like everything goes into panic mode,
You're breaking
because
all of the rules. You're breaking
yeah,
all of the contracts, all of
absolutely.
the contracts.
Absolutely. And it's like you feel like you're in danger. You feel like you're going to
Yes.
get killed for it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
dragged off to the square.
Ostracism,
Yeah.
annihilation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Elimination.
Yes. But then it's like, okay, no, we can do this. We can do this. So, as I said, for me, I feel like there's just always layers, and the work is never going to be done, because as you grow, there's always going to be another layer of that fear,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that like, am I really worthy of this? And is this too much? And all that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Always the deepening of that, right? Like, I
Yes.
love what you said about the difference between being someone who could go for something and want something, which I think a lot of people are comfortable with, right? Especially like the tenacious entrepreneur, and then having it, and then having to just kind of like be with it. Like,
Mm,
okay, so now you have it. So now what do?
exactly.
You continue, but it's not the same energy as going for something or striving for something.
Totally. I noticed something too with that. I realized that one of my big mistakes with this particular manifestation was that I hadn't really ever given thought about what would come after it.
Got it.
So I had spent perhaps 3 years of my life totally focused on manifesting this move to Spain,
Yeah.
and like my dream vision for it. And then it's like I'm here, and it's like I think my subconscious just thought we were dead, because it was like, we've done it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, now what? Like,
Right.
now what? Okay, you've just nailed the vision board. What's next? Right. And it just felt like, I don't know. Like I just like, and I think that was part of the thing. Like what got me out of that feeling really was starting to have a new vision board, have a new set of visions
Yes.
for the
Yes.
future,
Yes.
which was interesting to me. But I would just say a big tip for anybody who's manifesting anything: make sure you have a vision beyond the vision.
Oh my God. Yes. I'm putting a pin in that right now.
Yeah, don't just have the vision. Like, make sure you think about like the next step or the bigger thing beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point. Yeah. And so the the money that you know, besides the money you made from the home you sold in Colorado, your income was coming from your new business,
Correct.
right? In manifestation, right? Your AIM business.
So initially, though, it was my online business started with me teaching filmmaking and screenwriting.
Got it. Okay.
So from 2014, I started to teach filmmaking in the room. And I
Yeah.
think I was born to be a teacher. That's always been part of me. As I say, I spent like most of my 20s being a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
Like from 25 to 33, that was my full-time job, I was a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just somebody, like, if I discover something and I'm like, I've done something that I think was impossible. And for me, yoga was like that, because I was like the least flexible person in the world when I started yoga. Like I'd always been stiff all my life. I was stiff, right? And so when I started to yoga, I was like the worst, like I was like, just awful, right? In the room, sweating so hard, like just in misery and pain, trying to do the things. But I was also like, I knew in my heart, like, this is for me. I'm meant to do this. And it was so hard. So when I actually then got to the point, like within a year, I could do the splits. And I was like, what? This is
Wow.
impossible. Like all my life, I've been walking around with this story that I'm stiff, and now I can do this. I'm like, what? Who knew? Like it was just a story. Like all I had to do was change what I was doing and I got a different result. I'm a different
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
So I immediately wanted to teach yoga. And so I feel like when I do something that I think is impossible, then I want to help other people do it. So when
Yes.
I had made movies, I got my movie in Sundance, it won awards. I made another movie that was a much more sort of like conventional path, and it was a much bigger budget, but it was actually not a great experience. And it was after that I was like, I want to teach people how to make movies like how I made my first movie, because that's a path of like freedom as a filmmaker. And I want to teach filmmakers how to do it in this way so that they are free and they can make whatever they want, whenever they want, for the rest of their lives. And so I started teaching these workshops, and that was like my initial passion with that. And I always was like, this would make a good online course. I wrote a book about it. It was a very successful book, filmmaking book. The one of my students came to me and was like, this would be a good online course. How about, and I'll do the tech. I was so like not into tech, right? I was like terrified of the tech. He was like, I'll do the tech, you could do the course, right? And that's how I started with my online business. So we started out with the filmmaking course, and then I did a screenwriting course. And for that first year online, that like I was completely just screenwriting and filmmaking.
Yeah.
But then I had this epiphany. So I was suddenly like, you know what? I have been teaching people how to make films and how to write screenplays now for a few years, like in person as well as the online thing. And by now I've taught hundreds of people, and very few of them are really creating epic results, right? Like, and I was like, why is this? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, of course, the epic results do not come from knowing how to do the damn thing, do they? They come from your being, right? And I was like, ding, so that was the point at which I was like, I've got to start teaching these people how to be the magnet for the miracles. Because to be honest, if you want to have, like, you want to make films, for instance, you're not looking for a predictable result. A predictable result is you'll write a script and it never sells. That's predictable because like 99% of movies don't sell, right? Like the year my movie got into Sundance, it was 1.4% of movies that were submitted got in. 1.4%, right? So you can see the statistics. Like you're looking to be in that like 1.4% for, you're looking for a miracle. So it doesn't come from predictable behavior. It doesn't come from following rules or following formulas. It comes from energetics. It comes from tapping into the magic. And so I was like, okay, I've got to start teaching people this, because I'm actually not doing them a service. Like I'm teaching them how to do the thing. Like if you do this and then you can go there and then you get this and then you do that. But it's like they're not getting results because they're not in the vibe. They're not in the faith. They're not in the magic. So that's when I started to teach the magic. And slowly I realized, you know what? That's really what I want to teach now. I want to teach the manifestation. I want to teach like how to be in your power. I want to teach people how to create epic results. And so that's how I sort of ended up pivoting more into that space rather than teaching straight up screenwriting, filmmaking. But my online business totally started with screenwriting and filmmaking.
Yeah. Diane, I'm just like, I'm sitting here and I don't know what to do with myself. My body is just having all sorts of reactions right now. I feel like I want to like cough and just like because there's just so much shifting for me as you're talking. I'm taking copious notes. Um, be the magnet for the miracle, right? Don't do the predictable behavior. So how does one be the magnet for the miracle? What is your path? What is your formula? What is your way of doing that?
Yeah. The most simple way that I can say it, and there's a one-step answer, and then there's like a more complicated answer.
Yeah.
But the one-step answer is let yourself feel good. Just freaking enjoy yourself. Like, stop taking everything so seriously and just let yourself feel good. Like when you feel good, good things come your way. When you're
Yeah.
relaxed, when you're like receptive, when you're open to life, right? When you're at ease.
Yeah.
When we're stressing and we're forcing and we're striving and we're pushing and we're like anxious, we're blocking all the goodness.
Yes.
When I
Yes.
sold my first script, I mean, that was like a series of miracles that made no sense, except I was just having the best time of my life. And I tell people the story and they go, like there's different parts of it. I mean, I was a yoga teacher living in Barcelona. I didn't know anyone in the film industry, right?
Yeah.
So, people go, and people said to me, like, you're not going to be able to sell your script. I wrote a script and I was like, I'm going to sell this script. And this was like 2005. It was
Yeah.
about Mickey Rourke. This is kind of
Yeah.
weird. It was about Mickey Rourke and a voiceover actor, a Mexican voiceover actor who had dubbed his movies into Spanish, right? Because I was living in Spain at the time. And it was kind of about Mickey Rourke, like quitting acting to be a boxer. And this Mexican voiceover actor goes to LA to try to find Mickey and get him back into acting because he's not
Yeah.
getting any jobs, And so I'd written the script and I was like, I'm going to sell the script. And I found out that Mickey Rourke was going to be in Cannes. This is a true story. And this was 2005. And I was like, right, I'm going to Cannes. So I got my credit card and I rented a car and I printed up copies of my script. This was still when we would actually do print copies. And, and I like got a hotel and I went to the Cannes Film Festival, right? Like, I'm going to sell my script. But the funny thing is, like, I was not in an energy of like desperation or needing to. I was just in the energy of like, I'm having the time of my life. Like, this is the most fun that I could possibly be having.
Yes.
And, I went there and I didn't actually sell my script and I didn't meet Mickey Rourke, right? But I met a producer who, like a few months later called me and said, hey, I just had dinner with somebody who's working with Mickey Rourke right now. And I love the idea of your script. And I told him about it. And, he's interested and, can he get in touch with you? And I was like, of course, So out of that, this is that thing, right? I remember when I went to Cannes and stuff, my friends all thought I was nuts. And a couple people have managed to get to read the script, like who are in the film industry, and they were like, you're never going to sell this because you'll never get Mickey Rourke. It's not going to happen, And I was just like, I don't know. I just don't believe them. Like, they have every reason to know what they're talking about because they actually work in the film industry and I'm a yoga teacher. But screw it. I just don't believe them. Like, why wouldn't the script sell? Why wouldn't he want to do this? And, like I held that vision just so strong, but I had so much fun on the journey and I just didn't go into the negativity. And so like literally within 6 months, the script sold. I was invited to come to LA to have meetings and I'm sitting there having lunch with Mickey Rourke, taking notes on my script, right? Where he's telling me, I think my character should be more like this and that. Do you know, this happened? And it's like, it doesn't make sense, except it makes perfect sense when we're inside, right? And it's like, we're not, like, I knew in my heart that I was going to sell that script. Like, I just knew it. And I was just like, I'm not going to rest until he himself like says no. Like, I'm just not going to rest, but I'm not going to give up and I'm just going to have fun. And I think like the having fun, the enjoying it, the not putting pressure and stress and making it all mean so much is really one of the biggest keys to it all.
Yes. Yeah.
I think for women in particular, because I don't know about men, I can't speak for men, but I just know that women, our way of creating epic results is through magic. Like, we are magical beings.
Yeah.
And our magic is in our receptive energy, and it's also in our pleasure.
Yeah.
And the more that we are in pleasure and the more that we're enjoying ourselves and the more that we're turned on and the more that we're happy and the more that we're like just feeling all alive, the more that we're attracting good things. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And so if we have the vision and if you go, what's the process? Know what you want, know exactly what it is, what you want, have the vision for it, be really clear. Like, this is what I desire. Now that I know what I want, I can relax, right? Because it's going to come. right? And the thing is that the curious thing is, even if it doesn't, I'm going to be fine, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
it's that like true, like surrender about this. Like, I'm not like, this is about our dreams. This isn't about being able to put food on my table tonight, right? Like, this is about,
Yes.
like,
The
the next
bigger.
level of, yeah. And so it's like, okay, let's now just enjoy, let's just enjoy this. Let me look at whatever like is telling me that I couldn't have that. Let me process the shadow side, the things that come up. They're like,
Yeah.
you can't do this because blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's process that. But let's really keep the focus on just being excited and enjoying it and enjoying the journey, because that's what will always create the magic.
Yeah, I love that, the duality between knowing exactly what you want and being very clear, and also the surrender,
Yes. And the
right? And
surrender is essential. The surrender
it's
is
essential.
absolutely essential. I think surrender, because you hear people talk about it a lot, and I was always like, what does surrender mean? Does that mean like that I don't really want it? And I think with manifestation, it's like surrender does not mean that you don't care if it happens or not. You're surrendering. You're like, I don't care if this happens. It's not that, right? Because for me, when I'm trying to manifest something, when I've like decided I really want that, I want it, right? I really want that, right? Like I want to have like, I want to sell my script, or I want to have that house in Spain, or whatever it is. I want to get my movie into Sundance, right? Like I want that thing. I want it with all my heart. And it's not surrendering the desire for it, but surrendering the attachment. It's the surrendering of the like controlling how it's going to happen. Like
Yes.
putting our trust into the fact that if it's meant for us, it's going to come to us. And I can remember a moment like in buying this house where I was really like, it seemed like it wasn't going to happen. And I remember having a walk on the beach and just going, God, goddess, universe, source, I'm handing it over to you. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And if it's not, I totally trust that there's something else for me, that there's something that's better. There's something that I'm being led to that's different. And I trust it, and it's fine, and it's all good. And in that moment, I just went whoosh. And of course, within an hour, found out that that our offer had been accepted and all that. But I feel like it wouldn't have happened. It's that thing, like actually really just going, I trust, like I just trust that it's going to be fine.
Yeah, the trust is
I
so
trust.
big.
Yeah.
The knowing beyond logic. That is an exercise in faith and trust,
Yes.
right? Like faith that it will happen, trusting your intuition
Mm-hmm.
beyond, like the audacious belief that is still grounded in the doing and the acting, and like not just sort of like praying over your crystals, but actually like doing the things and
Oh,
listening to the podcast as you were doing, and going to con, and actually like putting yourself in
oh yeah.
situations where it could happen, right?
Yes,
Not just
absolutely.
wishing. um
No, the aligned action is a big piece of it for sure.
yes.
And it's definitely not the case in my experience that you just get to sit on the couch and it's just gonna like come to you. You get these downloads, and I think that's the thing with your intuition will suddenly have a little like kick for you, and
Yeah.
it will like do this, or call that person, or go there, or whatever.
Yes.
And then your logical brain will try to talk you out of it, like doubly
Yeah.
fast, right? That makes no sense, that's ridiculous, that's a really stupid idea,
Yeah.
like, how are you going to afford that, or what's that, no, 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 no. But the key is to like listen to those intuitions and absolutely just act on them. And
Mm.
if you do that, the intuitions will never lead you astray. Never. They
Wow.
are spot on 100% of the time. And I go like, if we could just like trust, like I just go follow soul is one of my mottos. Follow soul, like whatever soul says, just do it. Just trust it. It never leads you astray. And of course, it makes perfect sense, because your highest self is plugged into the quantum field of everything. Like it knows all the possible paths to your dream outcome. It knows what you want, right? And it also
Yeah.
knows like all the possible paths. So it's like, here, take this shortcut, and you're like, no, 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 that doesn't make sense. We got to go this. This is the conventional way. This is what everyone's telling me to do. This is what the experts say. This is what that book said. I got to do
Yeah.
it this way. No, your highest self, like your intuition, and you hear those little nudges, just lock in and do it, even if it's like the craziest thing you ever heard.
Right. And then also like surrounding yourself with the people who will support that
Yeah.
audacious belief, and that, and the knowing beyond logic, right? Because there's going to be so many people who will match that part of your brain or that part of your consciousness that is like, oh, that doesn't make sense, that seems weird, or I'm not going to do that, like what do people think? To have people that are like, go Diane, do it, like whatever, like yeah, listen, and who are so excited for you and who add to the joy, you know,
Absolutely.
who add to
Absolutely.
the expansion, or to the possibility of all the things that could happen.
Absolutely. And I always
Yeah.
say though, because I have a lot of students and clients who say, like they don't have that sort of support around them. They, maybe
Yeah.
their partner or their families like don't believe. And to be honest, I just go like, you don't owe anybody your dreams. You don't have to tell them. Like
Yeah.
I learned pretty early on, I think with the screenwriting thing, like most people thought I was just like totally nuts. And I learned pretty early on, just don't tell them about it. Like, just don't tell them because they don't get it. And they will just like talk you down and make you feel like an idiot,
Yeah.
for even daring to dream. So if anyone doesn't feel like they're wildly supportive of your crazy dreams, just just zip it. Don't talk to them about it.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about all the other things. You can love them, you can hang out with them, you can have lots of fun with them, all those things, but just don't tell them about like your crazy dreams, because you don't. It's really dangerous to have people poo-pooing your
Yeah,
dreams.
they come in and sort of, yeah, they poop all over the place. Yeah, they poop on it.
Yeah.
Diane, I feel like I totally fell in love with you in this
Oh.
conversation. Like I can really, really feel your magic, and I'm so grateful that, any witches that were castigated, burned, killed were not in your family, and that you were spared, and that you got to bring your gifts to this, time in history now, because it's like, wow, it was a very, very such a powerful conversation to me. I really felt like something shifted in me. Something I had a movement. So like
Ah,
I had shifts happening as you were speaking. So yes,
thank you.
very, very powerful.
It's what we're here for. I just go like, I feel, and it's interesting you said like this time in history. I feel so acutely like this is a moment, right? This
Yes,
is the moment. This is the
very,
transition. This is
yes,
what our ancestors have been praying for, and they are cheering us on. And this is the moment where we make this transition into a new earth. And it's really happening. And it is
yeah,
this, the old paradigms, the old world is crumbling before our eyes. I mean,
yeah,
literally, it's crumbling
yeah,
before our eyes. And we can either be terrified and depressed about that, or we can be like, aha, this is the opportunity to birth something new. And I
exactly.
just like, as women, this is our time. It's absolutely our time to anchor into our feminine nature, to bring that back to the fore and really bring that balance into humanity again. And I really do feel like that's the transformation that needs to happen to heal our world. Women coming into their power after millennia of the
Right.
patriarchy,
Yeah,
5,000 years of patriarchy, that,
absolutely.
it's our time. So I love
Yeah,
having this conversation. I'm so grateful to you for
yeah.
having me to.
And let people know, let little listeners know how they can find you, how they like, are you running any programs right now? Where can they follow you on social media?
Yeah, so my number one place is Instagram, and I just started a new Instagram account not so long ago called
Okay.
Aim from the Heart One. So
Yes.
at Aim from the Heart One, and I'm so excited about it because I had my other Instagram account that had over, like, I don't know, 13,000 followers or something, but it was screenwriting and filmmaking. So this one is my new one, which is all energetics, and it just feels so good, and I'm so excited about it. So come and see me at Aim from the Heart One. And I have like a few different programs. I have one coming up soon, which is the AIM Academy. AIM for me is the art of intentional manifestation. So this is like learning how to manifest your dreams through energetics, not
Yes.
through hard work and hustle, but through really understanding the energetics of it so that you can create the results that you desire in your life. So that is coming up soon. But the best way is like come to the Instagram. I'm also just launching my podcast. I've just launched it last week. So I'm
Yes,
super
yes, yes.
excited about. So that's the Aim from the Heart podcast. So you can check out Aim from the Heart
Yeah,
and you'll find it there. So yeah, that's
fantastic.
that's the best places.
Yes. Thank you so much, Diane, for being here. This was such a
Yeah.
gift. And I know that whoever's going to listen to this is going to have like an energy blast like I did. Like it's just
Good.
lives this conversation.
Well, this is it. Like I just go, we're here to like lift each other up and to remind
Yes.
each other, girl, like everything you dream of is possible, and let's just have fun while we make it possible.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just have fun. I love what you said. Like, let's
Yes.
just have freaking fun. Like, enjoy yourself. Yeah, don't
Yes.
take it so seriously. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Love
Okay.
that.
Thank you so much, Diane.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.